right. Well, good morning, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us this morning. We were just commenting with the panelists that it's way too cold to be up and coherent this morning, but here we all are. I'm Jess Wergo with the Community Foundation and standing in today for the amazing Lindsay Gleason-Reed, who had a conflict this morning. Normally, she would be leading the charge. But wanted to just welcome everybody today and a particular welcome to the panelists that we'll introduce in just a moment to talk this morning about volunteers, recruiting and retaining volunteers, how we use them effectively at our organizations. I have some pre-prepared questions for all of our panelists, so we'll start there. But also keep in mind any questions you have. And if a question comes up as we're talking, feel free to put that into the chat if you'd like, or just hold off and at the end when we open it up for questions, you can ask there. Before we get started, I just wanted to do a couple quick announcements from the foundation. So we have closed captioning enabled here, just so it's easier for folks who might be hard of hearing to follow what we're talking about. You can disable that yourself if you'd like, just by hiding captions at the bottom of your screen. We also record these sessions, so when you got on, you probably heard that we were recording, and we will upload the recording to the Community Foundation's website under our nonprofit resources page next week, so that you can come back and take a look, or that you can share it out with others who may be interested in this topic. Our scholarship application at the Community Foundation, that deadline is January 23rd. For graduating high school students, folks who are already in college or might be returning to college. So if you know of anyone who would be interested in a scholarship to support their college career, please send them over to the Community Foundation's page. Just click on scholarships. There's plenty of great information there, but time is waning. So tell them to get on it quickly because we are almost to our deadline. And then a couple other just announcements about upcoming events. So our next third Thursday is going to be on February 19th, and that will be in person. The locations to be determined, but we are going to be doing quarterly lunch sessions. So on the 19th of February, we will meet at 11:30, have lunch together, and have a more informal conversation. But we're going to be continuing on this topic of volunteerism. So please keep that in mind and mark your calendars for a chance to gather together in person next month. Then we've just got a range of good events coming up. So those of you who are part of some of our different initiatives at the foundation may know that Healthy Roots NRV is a large collaboration across the region focused on health and wellness. And that group is having a luncheon on February the 20th at Cross Point in Christiansburg. So keep an eye out for that in our communications. The Livability Exchange, which we host annually with the NRV Regional Commission at the German Club, that is on March the 25th from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. So again, be on the lookout for the invitation for that. We just sent out a save the date and the invitation will come shortly. And then finally, we are gearing up for our Give Local NRV Giving Day in June, and registration for Give Local will open on March the 1st. And then shortly after that, we will have an in-person kind of kickoff as well. So all of this will be in our regular nonprofit news that comes out twice a month, but just make sure you have those things on the calendar and feel free to reach out to anyone on our team about that. All right, announcements done. So let's talk volunteers. So very excited to be joined today by 4 nonprofit leaders who work really effectively with volunteers in all sorts of different ways across the region. So we have a lot to learn from them, and then of course a lot to share from our own organizations. So we have Sandy Hagman from the Blacksburg Interfaith Food Pantry, Ryan Martin from the YMCA at Virginia Tech, Joe Keeler with Volunteer Montgomery, and Shannon Hardwick with Plenty over in Floyd. So a great group of people. Thank you all so much for being a part of this. So I am going to let each of you, as part of your opening comments, just tell us a little bit about your organization, and then in particular, how you utilize volunteers. What kinds of projects do they do, and the range of things that they do. So, Sandy, can I start with you
Sure.
and tell us a little bit about that?
Okay. Um, our strength in volunteers comes from a lot of support from the community churches. We have a regular monthly assigned dates for people to volunteer at the pantry. Since COVID, we have actually got a core group of people, not necessarily from the churches, but they come every week. Like we have a group that coordinates Mondays and a group that coordinates Tuesdays, etc. We're open, by the way, Monday through Thursday, Mondays and Tuesdays from 4 to 5:30, and then Wednesdays and Thursdays from 10 to 11:30. Okay, so that's our core group of volunteers. They come, they help. That's when we're open for customers to come and use the pantry. And so they're there. But in addition to that, we have a lot of volunteers that do pickups. We place orders with local grocery stores, and then we have teams that go and pick up those groceries every week, bring them back to the pantry, stock the shelves. And they do that kind of work. And then we have then we have the sporadic calls for volunteers. Things like when the Postal Service does their annual collection of canned goods on the postal routes, we get a lot of food from that program, but it has to be looked at because it's not like we're doing the food. When we do the food drive at the grocery store, it's easy because we know the food is in date. But in this case, then we need a bunch of volunteers. Okay, so we have all of those kind of things, plus additional things come up like when we got the meat from the Hunters for the Hungry, we needed a group to go get 1,600 pounds of, did I say that right? Yeah, 1,600 pounds of venison. So we needed a team to do that. So how do we handle all of that? We actually do have volunteer software. It is called Go Connected by Galaxal Digital. Okay, got to get this right. And what we do is when somebody emails me the pantry and wants to volunteer, unless I have something very, very specific, then I direct them to a link to that website. And then people can see what's available. First of all, if they'll just register, and we try to encourage people, even if there's not something available right at the moment, to go ahead and just register. Because what that does is that puts them in our database. And then when we have these spur of the moment things that come up, for instance, we can send a blast email. Are you available to help with the potato drop, for instance? That has not passed yet. I believe that's upcoming in the next couple of weeks or so. And so we can send a blast email asking for help to with that particular organization. This seems to be working pretty well. I mean, there's still times when we do need volunteers that we have to scramble. We also have a newsletter, and I can post in the newsletter. I can post on Facebook. That seems to, like some of you may have been aware when we became aware from one of the Thrive meetings working with the Montgomery County school system of that they had several families that were housing insecure, meaning that either they were in a hotel or they may have been sort of couch surfing, going from family member to family member. We wanted some crock pots. I think we needed about 22. We ended up with like 40 to 50 crock, and I mean within 48 hours. I walked in with my crock pot to the pantry and we had them stacked up. That has enabled us to also share, because we're now working with the Council on Aging with some homebound seniors. And so we were able to, if they wanted to, we could share something like that with them. And so I'm going to cut this short because I know people will have other questions later. But that's kind of the big gist of how it goes. It's a big organization and we do require a lot of volunteers to just keep going, and you don't want to wear anybody out. Like so that's a very important thing to think about.
Yeah, thanks so much, Sandy. It's incredible to hear all of the different ways that you find folks and utilize them. And I know we'll be talking a little bit later about that question of kind of retaining and not burning folks out. And then also we'll put a link out to that Go Connected platform. I've never heard of that, so that's exciting.
Okay.
So kind of keeping on the vein of food assistance, I'm going to go over to Shannon with Plenty. And Shannon, you want to talk a little bit about how you all utilize volunteers, what kinds of tasks they do?
Sure, sure. So, Plenty uses about 73 volunteers per week, and our volunteers actually work 364 days a year. And we pick up from places like Food Lion twice a day, and those are volunteers doing that. So it's kind of um, all the time. Like we have volunteer support literally all the time. Um, the tasks vary. So we might need pantry assistance. We might need a home delivery person. We might need some help with our mobile pantry program. We also have volunteers that work with our partners at our free fridges, for example. And we don't necessarily count them as part of our volunteers, but they come. I mean, but they kind of are, right? Like they're helping us do things, you know what I mean, that we couldn't do without them. So we actually probably use a little more than 73 a week if we counted everyone at our partners. Um, Assigning them specific kind of duties and goals we found to be really helpful in retaining volunteers. Also, a lot of gratitude. We acknowledge anniversaries. We acknowledge when we have the majority of our volunteers are retired women. So when somebody loses a spouse, it's really important to us that we send a sympathy card. When somebody has a birthday, we try to acknowledge that. We also have volunteer appreciation events in a whole month where we spotlight volunteers. They're also put in our newsletter once a month, and we actually have our own volunteer newsletter. So we have an overall Plenty newsletter, but we also have a newsletter that just goes to our volunteers. Um, I think a management system is a game changer. I've worked at a couple different nonprofits. The first nonprofit I worked at, I was not excited because I felt like that would be expensive and just more work up front, and it kind of is. But I do not know how we would manage the volunteers at Plenty without some type of management system. The one we use is Volunteer Up, also not in the email. It is the platform that Habitat for Humanity uses, and that's why we selected it. It is not perfect, but there is no perfect platform. Everyone told us Sign Up Genius is the best one, and it did not work for us. Our people would not use it. But I do also want to say onboarding your volunteers if they've never used one, not the most fun experience. But if you just stick it out and really keep working with them and saying, you can do this, especially, some of our older folks, they were really intimidated and scared of the technology. So just really working with them. And honestly, Alex, our assistant AD, she is a volunteer coordinator for Plenty. She would be here if she wasn't on her bucket list trip to Turkey. But literally her interaction, onboarding, orientation, it has made such a difference. I think last year alone, when she started, and she started halfway through the year, she was doing more than 46 volunteers a quarter, new volunteers. Like that constant contact is so important. She does weekly updates. So I definitely don't want to seem like I'm taking the credit because it literally is it's her personality a lot of the times and her hard work.
Yeah. That's really helpful to hear. And I love sharing the different tools that you utilize, but then also helping folks know how to use those tools. So we'll definitely share some links to those and follow up as well. So Ryan, you use volunteers, particularly student volunteers, although more than just that. But I know a lot of our questions that people submitted ahead of time were also about how to engage younger people as volunteers. So tell us a little bit about how the Y uses volunteers of all ages.
Sure. So I guess first and foremost, we are one of only 6 campus YMCA's in the United States. Unlike other communities whose YMCA's do gymnasiums and fitness facilities and swimming pools, we really exist and have existed for the past 150 years to kind of be a bridge between the college community and the campus. I mean, the college community and the broader residential community. And so we really do focus on kind of creating programs and finding ways to engage college students, both at Virginia Tech and Radford University, and to a lesser extent, New River Community College too, to get them kind of off of campus into the community and start having real world experience running activities and projects and programs that are either in line with their career aspirations and classroom activities, or because they want to find a way to kind of connect in their adopted home for the next several years and kind of give back to the community and get involved in some passion project that they have. And so we accomplish that through a few different methods and mechanisms. We do have just sort of a general sign up kind of form online that people can go to on our website and kind of just fill out that they're interested in volunteering and give us an idea of a few of the different areas that they might be interested in volunteering in. Um, we also work closely with college professors to provide experiential learning, so kind of more curriculum-based field studies or internships or kind of senior capstone projects or things of that nature, or things that go along with a professor's kind of classroom activities and finding a way to make it germane to some volunteer activity so that if they put in that, I don't know, like 5% of the grade is going to be based on volunteerism, it's not just kind of going out into the world and maybe picking up trash on the side of the road, although that is very helpful and needed, but trying to find a way to make that really more pertinent to what the class is trying to teach and how that's kind of involved in different aspects of our organization that we can benefit from too. So really strong, robust kind of relationships with Virginia Tech and with the campus community. We also have, and we have had for decades, a college student organization that is a registered student organization for the YMCA at Virginia Tech at Virginia Tech. And we've got within that a lot of college student leaders as well. And it sort of runs a gamut from just sort of being involved as a college student and volunteering for the YMCA, all the way up to being on the student council and being a member of that executive committee that helps to make plans and resources available to the students who are getting involved with us. So we really rely heavily on those students to kind of help recruit students, help kind of manage students and organize the students, train them, etc., but also help to provide the leadership to them. For the college student aspect of it, the student council, 2 of the members, the president and the vice president, actually sit on my organization's board of directors alongside of the community members who are leading through the board level, and then are also involved in different committees of the YMCA too. So really kind of robust activities that we're doing with college students to give them some really great, cool, real world experiences. We do try to put college students involved in everything that we do across all of the different myriad of projects that we have. So there isn't really a program that doesn't have some college students involved in it in some way, shape, or form. And connected to that, we really try to take an eye toward sort of a continuum of volunteerism. So on the one end, there's a transactional volunteer. They're just coming one time to do one thing because maybe they've got that classroom requirement to do something, or because they are trying to get involved in a student organization and there's a volunteer commitment there. So they're coming one time to maybe help at our craft fair and do a volunteer project there, or they're coming one time to help maybe do some organization at the thrift shop or something of that nature. And then on the other end of the spectrum is kind of a transformational kind of leadership level volunteer. And so we're always looking at how do we move people along that continuum from just being a one-time volunteer with us to being more involved more frequently, maybe moving up eventually to a program leader position with our college students, and then finally possibly going up to the student council level to really be involved in the leadership decision-making processes for some of the different activities that we have. So always looking at how do we move that up the line and kind of get them to being more ingrained and integrated into the YMCA as part of their either civic engagement or kind of classroom future career expectations. So that's kind of a lot of what we do with students, and I can talk about some more other aspects later on. But then we also have community-based volunteers to help with the projects and programs as well. And a lot of that takes the form of being kind of policy level, leadership level volunteers. So finding ways to put individuals on leadership committees so that they can help oversee some of the projects that we're doing, or that might be something like what being on our public relations committee or our finance committee or facilities committee, et cetera. And again, it's sort of a continuum where they're volunteering maybe once in a while on a project, and we see that they've got a really strong interest or enthusiasm for an area, and then finding a way to connect them, maybe if they're interested in being more of a ongoing committee member and kind of incorporating those elements into what they're kind of representing in the community as a liaison, but also as a leader for the YMCA, and then promoting them up to the board of directors if they show really strong interest in kind of helping the organization acquire new resources or open new doors in the community to help us with projects and programs that we're trying to work on, et cetera. So trying to be kind of intentional about the way that we have different touch points to volunteers and finding ways to really make it interesting and important to them while also uncovering opportunities for them to get more integrated into what the YMCA does long term throughout the entire region.
Thanks, Ryan. That's really helpful. I like the emphasis on kind of developing volunteers over time with increasing levels of engagement and authority to some extent as they start to work on different projects. I know we've got some organizations on the call that are primarily volunteer run, and at some point, as wonderful as we all are, we would like to pass the torch eventually to others. So figuring out ways to kind of develop that leadership is key. So, Joe, I am especially excited that you are here from Volunteer Montgomery, because not only can you talk about recruiting volunteers and utilizing them, but of course, Volunteer Montgomery also connects out then to organizations like the one on this call. So tell us about Volunteer Montgomery, about how you all utilize volunteers or connect them to organizations like ours.
Awesome. So I'm Joe. I'm the volunteer coordinator at Volunteer Montgomery. I just started about 3 months ago, so I'm still pretty new in the position, but I've already been quite busy since being here. Volunteer Montgomery literally has the name volunteer in it. So that's what we focus on. We originally were RSVP, meaning that we would only, well, I guess we were federally granted to help those over 55 years old. 2023, we released that grant and said we wanted to do more in the community and not just limit it to a certain age demographic. Right now we have 358 volunteers and we just hit 70 partner organizations. So we're very excited about that and we would love to continue to grow. Pretty much our main initiative is to connect volunteers in the community that want to serve and with partner organizations. So our partner organizations is actually a lot of you all. I see some familiar faces. So you guys let us know like, hey, we need volunteers to help with the food pantry or the YMCA for certain events. And what we do is we notify our volunteers and whoever is able to attend can. I took notes because I'm also learning a lot from you all as well. We do have a lot of different opportunities at Volunteer Montgomery. It's not just a weekly thing or monthly thing. We do have certain events that we do monthly, especially with a lot of the local nursing homes. That's something we have continued since before 2023. Davis and McDaniel, we visit Commonwealth Senior Living, stuff like that. And so we do have a group of regular volunteers that really love having that continuation of volunteer opportunities. Every third Thursday of the month we have this project. So that's been really great. We do have volunteers that aren't always able to volunteer as often. So we like to have that array of opportunities, like even at Volunteer Montgomery, we have an evening event tonight. So just making sure, and that's one thing we're working on as well, is having volunteer opportunities or letting our volunteers know about opportunities both during the day and in the afternoon and evening. We've signed a lot of volunteers up from Virginia Tech. That's something that we're really trying to emphasize as well. Virginia Tech's motto is that I may serve. So we're really just working a lot with connecting with Virginia Tech, fraternities, sororities, majors. We're trying to work with VCOM right now because they're like required to do being active in the community. So we're working with them to say, okay, what is something that you guys are passionate about? What time do you have availability? And then what's your interests as well? How people usually find Volunteer Montgomery, of course, is by word of mouth. Through our partner organizations, we have someone say, oh, we have, all this help from Volunteer Montgomery. What's Volunteer Montgomery? And they kind of give a spiel. We're also big on social media. I really believe that social media is such it's just a way of the future, especially recruiting a lot of the Virginia Tech students and younger demographic, just being very active on social media. I also run the social media as well. So taking pictures of the events, taking pictures of the delivery, just showing more of like what we're doing during the event and after the event is really, really important because people, I think, can see themselves volunteering if they see other people volunteer. I will say next week we have our supplies for seniors. It's our biggest project of the year. And so we will be really emphasizing that as well. But yeah, social media, I think, is definitely something that I know is not, there's a lot of guidelines. There's a lot of, qualms with social media, but I genuinely think that is very, very important. So that's something that I always reiterate. Going back to, I believe Shannon talking about the onboarding. That is something that we do require each volunteer to be a part of. Karen is the one that actually does the majority of the orientations, but they come to Volunteer Montgomery, so they see our office. They get a little spiel about Volunteer Montgomery and they meet the rest of the staff here. We are a pretty small team, but they get to meet everybody and see that face-to-face connection as well. And if they need any questions or anything like that, they know who to contact. So I think that's really comforting to them. The software that we use is called Volgistics. It's okay. I think there's some things that I wish we could do a little bit more on, but it is our main list of volunteers, their contact information, and then also our partner contact information is there as well. And we can send emails that way as well. We do have a newsletter that we send out monthly in the beginning of the month, talking about, of course, what we've done the previous month, upcoming opportunities, and then going back to, and of course, Shannon saying like the recognition is really important. We thank everybody for their time. We even say them by name. Thank you, this person, this person, this person, for helping out for these events, for donating to our supply drive. And they love it. They love seeing their names out there. So that's something that they really, really enjoy. So that's just like a quick spiel of Volunteer Montgomery, because I know um, it's 9:30, but I can also do is put a little bit more information about Volunteer Montgomery and how to like sign up, get our newsletter like that as well.
Yeah, that's great, Joe. Thanks so much. And so helpful to just know that your organization exists and can be a great partner to so many of us. Many of you kind of already touched on recruitment. So whether it is, partnering with like student groups or faith-based organizations, or utilizing social media or a newsletter or a communication channel. But I just wanted to give some space if any one of our panelists wanted to add any more about recruitment and what you have found either most successful or most challenging. Do you guys have any of you want to add something on that recruitment question? Sandy?
I would say the more complicated job, the harder it is sometimes to, because I think in general it's easier to get a volunteer that I have a specific job. You come in, you do it, you leave, and you don't need anything else. But we are gearing up to try to do again our Just One Can campaign, which we started last year, in which we were encouraging the greater Blacksburg and McCoy area to collect canned goods for the pantry. And, if we could get enough canned goods with one big drive, that could carry us through several months and we wouldn't have to keep doing it. So to get specific volunteers to do a lot of contact work and things like that, and sometimes there's projects, like I've always had in mind a couple of projects in the back of my mind, but trying to find the volunteers that are willing to organize and sort of work independently. I see Joe is is nodding along, probably Ryan too. These are the kinds of things that I think are the harder. If you have a small kind of one and done kind of project, pretty easy to find somebody. Even if it's something like every week, just do this one thing for an hour every week, that's pretty easy to find too. It's the bigger projects that become more complicated.
Really helpful. So specificity and relatively, sort of small scale, easy projects are helpful, although that is, of course, not all that we do as organizations. Any other advice, Shannon, Ryan, or Joe, when it comes to recruitment? Ryan?
Sure, I'll share it. So we do kind of build it into at the leadership level. So like our college student program leaders and the council, et cetera. Um, and those are the individuals that are really like leading the programs. They develop the budgets for the programs. They help to recruit volunteers for their programs. They help to train the volunteers for the programs, et cetera. At those levels, we really do try to set the stage so that those individuals are looking at who's going to replace them in the coming year. And so that is either going to be from like their current group of volunteers who are maybe more consistent volunteers to the project that are coming maybe a couple times a month or once a week, and then kind of cultivating and grooming those individuals to step into that higher level of leadership for the next year. Again, college students are great, but they're only here for 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years. So there's lots of turnover in that regard, and we always try to make it sort of incumbent upon the leader as part of their responsibility to find somebody that's going to replace them the next year. And then the other thing is, really looking out and seeing if there is a specific project maybe that's going on or some kind of initiative that has maybe lends itself more to one major or one kind of college student interest group, finding different student organizations that might align that way, or kind of classes that might align that way too, and then really being out there talking to those individuals, creating the relationships, and then recruiting them to be involved. The other thing that we do, I think, kind of well, is looking at different college student organizations that already do volunteerism. I mean, they exist because they're volunteer organizations. So connecting with them at kind of the often they've got students who are involved in leadership activities to try to find activities or opportunities for their members to get involved. So kind of keeping that net open and asking them to also be involved in different projects, pushing it out to them when we have something coming up that we know that we need a lot of broad volunteer base for. And then also having them kind of thinking about directing individuals to us for upcoming activities. Um, Although I will say just a drawback or something, a consideration for that, we have had a situation in the past where at the beginning of like the semester, the vice president of service for a certain organization came in and she put her name in our sign up genius for all of the weeks that semester for like 3 of the slots, expecting that their students would be there and filling those slots for the entire semester. Um, and it looked great at the beginning, but then there were trip ups where those students didn't come or didn't show up. And so we really had to talk to the student organizations about, we love that you've adopted this project, but we really need to make sure that people are kind of being there. So at that point, we decided to have them remove their name from that sign up so that it's open and other people can sign up for it in case there's other interest. so that we're not necessarily relying on any one group to provide continuous volunteerism, and we're diversifying who might be interested in those activities. So I just, for what it's worth, great to have those long-term ongoing relationships with student organizations, but sometimes they can be a little overzealous, meaning well, but you kind of have to make sure you're providing opportunities for more groups, more students, not necessarily pinning in any one organization or activity.
Yeah, that's really helpful, Ryan. And on the recruitment front, and I want to make sure Joe and Shannon can jump in as well, but I just wanted to kind of add something else that came up in some of the questions that we received, which is we've got organizations that have kind of a built-in group of potential volunteers. So that might be something as simple as people who receive our newsletters to, say people who donate to the organization, or if you're a membership organization, maybe it's your members. So any thoughts as we're on this recruitment topic about not just recruiting broadly, but kind of how do you take those folks who are already interested and convert them into volunteers? Any thoughts or comments on that?
I did want to build on something
Yeah,
Ryan said and then go into
sure.
this. Those student organizations or just organizations in general, like that ACE program, where the students have to work in their county. So my county students can't come to you in a different county and yours can't come to me. But those are built-in volunteers in a way with more accountability, right? Because they want that free tuition. So we're finding a lot of times they tend to be a little bit more consistent until they fulfill their hours. Then they're kind of golden, right? But we're finding that that is super helpful. Now, as far as Jess, are you kind of asking about maintenance? Like once we recruit them, once we get them here, keeping them
I,
here?
yeah, I mean, certainly that's a part of it, but I
Mhm.
think, some of the organizations on the call, like they've got donors or members of their organization that aren't currently volunteering but could be a source of volunteers, right?
Oh,
so
gotcha.
so is there any way that you guys think about that, folks that might get your newsletter, or anything where you kind of take people already interested and sort of convert them into those that are willing to give more of their time and talent?
Gotcha, gotcha. So definitely we've said social media, through newsletters, making it accessible. So if I put in my newsletter, like we are really looking for volunteer drivers, right? Like that's our focus. Making sure I have links and way for people immediately to click. Because you don't want to lose them. As soon as they're interested, snag them. But I do want to say that personal invite, I'm finding once we empower our volunteers, once we get them here, and we say, do you know anybody? Do you know anybody that would want to come in? Board members, for example, all of our board members volunteer. But then we speak to them about, do you have anybody? Do you have a spouse? And now we have couples that do our pickups. It's kind of a two-person job. It makes it a whole lot easier, right? But the way we personally invited them, and this is an invitation. Sometimes we kind of come at this thirsty, perspective of we need volunteers, somebody help us. Sometimes if you just operate from abundance, like the vibe here is wonderful. You're going to make friends. These are lifelong friends. We have volunteers that are still with us since day one when McCabe and Karen started this place. They know more about plenty than I know. But one of the reasons they hung out and stayed and continued is because it was just the vibe and the environment and the team they built together.
That is such great advice, that notion of kind of coming from abundance and the opportunity that we as organizations provide to folks who want to volunteer. So maybe we can kind of continue to add on the recruitment front, but also
Hey, Jess, can
thinking
I
about that.
just, I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
go
just
ahead,
one
Ryan.
other thought. So this this is always something that I tend to overlook, but I was reminded within the past month that, you know, consider who are your program participants too, because like we've opened a corner market, and so we're making food available to individuals that need access to that and may or may not have SNAP benefits, et cetera. But there were three internationals that came to get food from us a few weeks ago, and they were so thankful for being able to have that opportunity that they've decided to become volunteers. And so that they're now coming to the pantry themselves and they're helping to get food out to the community through kind of just being there and volunteering to help kind of give the food away. So I tend to fall in this rat trap too about overlooking your participants who are receiving benefits. Excuse me. They could be a tremendous source of volunteerism too because they have experience with it. They know how important and passionate it can be, and so they want to get involved to help kind of extend services to the community too.
That's a great recommendation as well, is to not overlook those you serve. You know, they this notion of kind of you have something to give and you have something to get from the experience. I know that's kind of cornerstone to what Plenty does, and I think that that's really key for all of our organizations. So I'm going to kind of ask one more question and just want to remind everyone that after that we're gonna open it up to broad questions. If you have anything right off the bat, feel free to pop that into the chat or just be ready to unmute and raise your hand. But while you all are thinking about that, just wanted our panelists to touch on as well this kind of care and feeding of volunteers and this retention piece. And you all have touched on it a little bit. But how do you make sure that your volunteers continue to come back? So we've talked about, you know, creating an environment that people want to come back to, thanking and acknowledging the contributions that they make. Joe, any other thoughts that you have? And feel free to also add in on recruitment as well if you had anything to add there.
Yeah, I will say following the comment about the ACE program, we actually have an ACE coordinator here in our office. Her name is Karen, the one who does the onboarding. She's really great, and she's working really hard right now to get all the hours completed from last semester. I think another thing too, we're trying to I'll say market of volunteers is companies that offer volunteer leave. I know a lot of times, like especially with banks, like we're working now with First Bank and Trust, I believe, and they're coming to our supplies for seniors. It's one of the branch managers and a few other people. We're going to be helping with their supplies for seniors next week. And a lot of companies are now offering volunteer leave. I know the government center offers 20 hours of leave per year. I don't know if I should say that, but you know, and I think a lot of, like I said, banks and different corporations are wanting to give back, Target as well. And so really just tapping into that kind of volunteerism in that way. And yes, they might only volunteer maybe once a year, once every 6 months, but I think that's something that if you're on their radar, you can absolutely be in the radar every year. We just worked with Virginia Tech Athletics back in November, their ticket office. They helped us out with our November evening event. They have a day of service every single year, every November. And so we're on their map every November now. So that's really, really neat. So not trying to push that into more. We also, like so we tell them you can participate in as many as you want, but I know with their job, especially, you know, up and down working weekends, nights, they can't always be of everything, but just being really excited when they do show up. So when they did after our event, we of course took pictures, we tagged them on social media, sent them a thank you email as well. And so just really, really just showing our gratitude for them as well. We definitely have volunteers as well that love letters and everything like that. So we still use the postal system for those that just, you know, love seeing something in the mail. So that's something that we do. We also do have a volunteer appreciation event every 6 months. So we're supposed to have a Christmas party. Unfortunately, it got snowed out. But just doing that kind of things, of course, like I said, just thanking them in our newsletter. They very much appreciate as well. And there's one other thing I cannot quite remember. But yeah, I think, and like I said, I've been taking notes of what you all are saying too, because I think we can absolutely take back a lot of what is working with your all's programs as well. I think the personal invitation is also great. I always try to reiterate that technically Volunteer Montgomery only requires 1 hour service every 6 months, so it doesn't have to be a big commitment. But I helped out with the Montgomery County Christmas store this past year, and everyone I talked to there, I'm like, you know what, this is your hour of service. Like you don't technically have to volunteer for another 4 or 6 months if you don't want to, but a lot of these people do love volunteering. So just being that, you know, this is something that, you know, you're passionate about, and we want to be helping you and not feeling like you're a burden or feeling like you have to sign up for every weekly event. our monthly event. It's just being that encouragement to, hey, thank you for what you're doing for the community, is really, really important. So.
It's great, super helpful, Joe. Others have thoughts from our panelists of kind of retaining volunteers and maybe making sure as well that you're not burning them out. Sandy, do you have anything on that front you want to share?
Well, for the most part, once people start volunteering, they pretty much stay. We don't lose a lot of volunteers through attrition. A lot of times it's through moving. As people age older, they may, we just recently had a real strong volunteer, and she was there every week, but she and her husband moved to Richmond. So I mean, we people slip in and slip out that way, but we don't have too many that outright click. And I just wanted to point out something I think Shannon mentioned. Our when we work with somebody that's going to be added to our board, we make it known that we're a working board. You just don't come to a board meeting once a month and just sit around and talk or stamp approval on some kind of project. We expect you to spend some time doing work for the pantry. So we do that as well. We are, and it is because we are all volunteer. And I think a lot of people that give and give generously to the pantry and expect that 100% of their money goes to buy food for people that need it. We don't spend any money on volunteers. We do try to verbally thank people and do stuff, but we are thinking about planning something. Next year will be our 40th year in operation. And so we want to plan something, even if it's not huge, but some kind of way to recognize our volunteers and the service that they provide. But, I do try through social media, through emails and things like that to mention people. I hope the other church volunteer coordinators do what I do because I also represent the Lutheran congregation of the church I go to. I constantly remind the congregation of people that volunteer for the food pantry. I just want people to know they're appreciated. But it is hard, to when you're just trying to get the job done that your organization has been established to do. Sometimes you want to take a deep breath, step back, and make sure you're thanking your volunteers.
It's really helpful. I mean, everybody wants to feel valued, right? And everybody wants to feel like the work that they do is making an impact. So I think that advice of taking a minute to step back and thank folks meaningfully is really important. Let me transition to anyone in our group here on the call who has any questions that you want to ask of our panelists as we're getting near the end of our time. Any burning questions from your experience?
Can I talk?
Jess, Pat has
Yep.
her hand up.
Yep, go for it, Pat.
Well, this is less of a question than where I'm at the moment. So it's a very interesting time for lifelong learning. So we are an organization that has volunteer instructors who teach our courses and events and plan them. So we are mostly volunteer. And what has worked in the past has been a lot of very personal recruitment for those leadership positions for the roles that we need to have done as committee chairs and so on. The thing that I'm focusing on right now is the fact that I knew everybody for the last 10 years, and we are now recruiting so many new members to the organization. We just registered 450 people in one day yesterday. I don't know those people anymore. So it's really hard for me to do that. What I think is the invitation to be more engaged with the leadership roles in lifelong learning. And of course, I'm dealing only with seniors, so it's, I don't know that you have any advice for me, but the struggle is I no longer have a grasp on who everybody is, because the group has evolved and changed and we have so many new members. And I have always believed that personal invitation is the best way to get people to do things. We put out a note that says we need something and nobody responds, or the wrong people respond. And then what do you do with that? So personal invitations always work best for us, but I'm no longer knowing exactly who to invite. That's my struggle at the moment. And you may just share that struggle, but if you have any advice, I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah, that's helpful to know. Pat, any advice? I'm wondering in particular, like Shannon, Alex came in and she was new, so she obviously is in a staff position, and of course you were new at one point too. Like, how do you all start to kind of introduce yourself to the volunteers or reach out to those folks that, you may not know as part of the organization right off the bat?
Um, I definitely relate to this because there is turnover. I think I read recently national retention rates for nonprofits are about 65% with volunteers. Staff, it's even less than that. It's staff members tend to stay about 3 years in these positions. So turnover is a real thing. Change is inevitable, right? One of the things we do again is that constant contact, even if it is a new person, because before it was Jen, before Alex, right? So we have those weekly updates. Um, I will say something that Alex and I personally do here that I feel like hasn't always been done in the past is we get up from our desk, and it's not always possible for everybody, but at our organization it is. And we get out there and we work that pantry some too, even though we're in administrative assistant or an executive director positions, and we could sit at the desk all day long and nobody would say anything because we're working hard. But we do get out and we talk to the patrons and we talk to the volunteers, and I do try to learn a little something about them and share a little something about me, just to make, again, that personal connection. Most people leave nonprofits because either they're not enjoying it or they don't feel their impact. They don't feel they're making a difference. So that is one thing we work so hard at Plenty to always talk about. We send out over 5,000 pounds of food a week to people in need, and we share that with our volunteers, and our donors and our stakeholders, just to make sure everybody understands that what we're doing makes a difference. And another thing we share is it doesn't have to be like this. Food insecurity does not have to exist. If we work together, if we all just really understood what that statement meant, imagine what we could do. So we really try to involve those volunteers. And Pat, it might not be possible because sometimes there aren't office spaces or brick and mortar, nonprofits. But that's just a little something we're doing at Plenty.
That's a great suggestion, Shannon. I love the idea of, to the extent that you can, just making sure that you're also participating, getting out there as much. Ryan, Joe, or Sandy, anything to add on that front?
I just
I
think,
just go ahead, Shannon.
I'll just say this real quickly. We get volunteers that age out, at a certain point. Because we are required, when we're helping people, we are lifting bags full of groceries. And I don't know if any of you have seen our facility. To get the grocery cart to the car, it's kind of a downhill kind of thing. And we don't allow our customers to push that cart because we had an accident. This was several years ago, and someone actually dislocated their shoulder. So we're very careful about that. But that also means our volunteers have to be capable of doing something like that. So I think you have to be aware of this, and realize that at a certain point, people either they're just exhausted or tired or just can't physically. So we have to gently, sometimes they voluntarily give up the volunteer work, but then again, it's an issue. You have to constantly keep thinking, who are we going to replace? If this person goes, who are we going to replace? Because even if you do a lot of work, you're always replaceable. I may think at some point that, I've made a list of all the jobs I do so that if I get hit by the bus next week, somebody knows what to.
Or if you win the lottery, Sandy, you might win the lottery.
Well, if
There
I
you go.
did that, we could solve all our problems because I'd be giving it away. I don't need it. Okay, Ryan, take it away.
Yeah, Ryan.
Oh, I was just gonna say, Pat, I don't know. Something that just jumped to mind for me was maybe once a semester, once a year, you could offer like a behind the scenes sneak peek about what it takes to run everything for LLI and how the impact that you have. Here's the impact that we had. We had this many classes, this many participants. Come take a look and see what's involved in helping us to make that happen year after year after year, and then see who shows up. And if there are people that are coming to it, that seems to indicate that they might want to be more involved or have a kind of a leadership activity there. So you could kind of cultivate that and help them get involved in something that you are searching for.
Oh, that's a good idea, actually. We do, and we will do next month a welcome event. So immediately after registration, we have a welcome event, and then we try to bring both the active volunteers already and then the newbies to come in and say, this is a real thing. Lifelong learning is a community, so come meet some people, not just in your classes, but understand that we are mostly volunteer driven. And we need your support more than one way. So we have some entry level ways we get people involved, but I need some people at the leadership role. And again, for decades, my best method is to take them out for coffee and talk them into it. I can talk anybody into something if I get a chance to figure out who it is I need to talk into. So it's just finding who's the right person to have that coffee with.
One of the many reasons you're an effective president of the Community Foundation, Pat Heyer. Fair, fair. I want to thank everybody for being a part
Yes.
of today. Yeah, go
Can I
ahead.
make one more point just real quick? So
Yep.
this is a little bit counterintuitive, but I think it's important to say this too. And this doesn't happen very often, but I just also keep in mind that it's okay sometimes to fire a volunteer. So if you get a volunteer in that's sort of toxic or causing problems or is not reliable or something, it's okay to have a really kind of heartfelt conversation with them and let them know that this might not be the opportunity for them and they should consider maybe looking at some other activities or something else. So again, kind of a negative skew, and I hate ending on that note, but just keep in mind that it's okay to sort of make sure that your organization is protected by having strong, positive volunteers and not getting weighed down by individuals coming in with negative energy or that might not be reliable and are causing problems in the other front because they're not doing kind of the work where they're share the load or something that they signed up for.
Yeah.
And
Very helpful.
I had a
That's
quick
right.
question too. My name's Laura. I'm with Cardinal News, and the question that was about like turning kind of members and donors into volunteers when we don't really have a volunteer program, that was part of what it. So I'm really glad that you guys addressed that. But I was curious. One of Joe's comments about finding companies that have volunteer leave. I mean, since we are all, in the same area, is there like a common list that anyone has compiled that they would be willing to share, or anything like that? Does that exist?
That's a great question. Joe, how do you identify those?
So honestly, there's not a list. That would be actually great. That's something maybe I can start working on. The one thing I will say is that, well, I'm also really big into Rotary as well. I'm a Rotarian, and then I'm also a member of the Montgomery County Chamber of Commerce. And so I'm in a case group for there. So I obviously talk to them about volunteering all the time. And a few of them have mentioned like, oh, our work does this. And for Rotary Club, we actually had a local target. This was in Stanton, so it was a Seward Draft target. Say that they have a whole volunteer program. I think if they work a certain number of hours, they end up getting time off, like vacation time or something like that. So I think there's like a little bit of initiative to serve the community. But I think a lot of it is just based on connections that I've made, like both professionally and through Rotary Club that say like, oh yeah, I can like get off work and volunteer. So what can I do? I'm like, well, there's a number of things you can do, but I will say, like, a lot of like banks and that kind of like a lot of corporates as well, or they want to show also that their people that they work for are really passionate about helping people outside of their work. So just like I said, it's just mainly been a lot of more of like word of mouth, but yeah, that would be something I can absolutely try and work on. Is compiling a list, but I think it's just more of like, just like the professional workplaces. And I think a lot of people, like I said, a lot of managers and stuff would be really accepting of saying, oh yeah, we're going to help with the food pantry because I mean, especially with the government shutdown and everything like that. You know, a lot of food scarcity is a real thing in the community. So I think that, you know, just saying like, hey, can I take a couple hours off and help someone else in need? I think there's not many people I think that would say no. But yeah, I think that's just a little bit of how I've kind of gotten into that. So
It's
I think
helpful advice with rotaries and chambers.
I
Yeah,
think
Sandy?
I think some businesses, I don't know specifically of any businesses that do that around here, but um, we are sometimes surprised by local businesses that will do like an in-house food drive or something like that. We got, I'm going to either over or underestimate. We got something like 2,000 or more pounds of food from like Federal Mogul. There was this, they brought food in on pallets. This was right before Christmas. And talk about having to send out a call for volunteers. We received not only their donations, but also the donations from the turkey trot at the same time. And normally we don't get a huge amount from the turkey trot, but this year, I think because of all the stuff in the news about SNAP, the more that all of that is publicized, the more we get, you know, because people become really aware that it is a problem because it's out there more and it's not something they can really forget. I don't want to, you know, it's just true. When community issues are out there more, then people are more aware of what is going on. But yeah, I mean, sometimes we are surprised and grateful for what community does for us.
Well, again, thank you all so much. Thanks in particular to our panelists for sharing so much wisdom from your experience. And I just want to underscore again that our February session is going to continue this conversation. So for those of you that may have joined us for our kind of year end in person in December, we really enjoyed the opportunity to just connect without a real tight agenda, but just an opportunity to talk through some shared challenges. And so on February 19th for that luncheon, again, starting at 11:30. We will get together and the broad topic is volunteerism. And my ask to you all is, well, certainly, of course, to sign up when we send the registration out, but to think as well, maybe in advance and send over to the foundation. Are there certain topics, for example, several different kinds of software came up, so we'll kind of compile and look at those. You know, Joe was talking about maybe compiling a group of corporations that have
Could be
volunteer
targets.
hours. Yeah, exactly. Or several of you have talked about student organizations, so we'll maybe try to reach out to say VT Engage or NRCC and see if we can get some folks to join us. But if there are certain things that you want to make sure we talk about, or like, hey, it would be really good to look into this before we meet in February, please let us know because this is just a good opportunity to, again, kind of crowdsource some great ideas from one another. But is there anything we all can kind of do together that might make the work a little bit easier for all of us? So again, thank you so much for being a part of this. We will take the recording and post it online next week, so be on the lookout for that. And then please be on the lookout as well for the invitation to our February session and look forward to seeing you all then. Everybody, and enjoy your Thursday. Thanks all.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Appreciate all the work you could do.